his finger into the sky, telling the man to look. There was a UFO. The man looked in that direction in surprise, asking, "What? UFO? What is a UFO?" Slyly approaching the man from behind, Juan replied not to worry, he will see it now. He kicked the man in the lower back with his foot. The bandage fell off his face. His eyes rolled up and blood spurted out of his mouth. Yao Han flew off and hit the stone fence hard, which had cracks from the collision. Walking over to the man who was sitting on the ground and holding his head, Huang thought, shouldn't a rank 6 be stronger? If you know your opponent's weaknesses, it solves a lot. The man looked at the guy incredulously, asking, didn't he want to get revenge on this guy? I knuckled my knuckles, Huang asked. Take revenge on him? Along with him? Looking at Wang fearfully, Yao Han asked him, what was he going to do? Just then a small yard dog appeared from around the corner, marking the corner before barking and running away. Exhaling, Zhang Huang thought to himself that it wasn't that difficult. This guy, the Yao family's assistant and Uncle Zhao, he's had enough. How does it feel for him to be defeated by a rank 5? Martial arts? Kung fu? He sure as hell hadn't had a battle like this yet. The man's face was battered, his eye and lips swollen. He began to rise slowly. Huang noticed this and thought to drive suspicion away from him. He thought of Shan Bin, deciding that everything could be blamed on him. If he hadn't come up this afternoon, he wouldn't have remembered about him. The guy told the man that Zhang had pissed him off this afternoon, so he wanted to teach him a lesson. Although the guy is here for the same thing, but if he really wants to castrate him, then Shenbi would think he was the one who did it, so he wouldn't take his responsibility. He shouted to the man to get out of here. Getting up from the ground, the man held his lower back, remembering that firstly, that man had definitely talked to Zhang this afternoon. Secondly, he often quarreled with Zhang. Thirdly, he had said something about Shenbi. When the man had gone far enough away, Huang removed the blindfold from his face, thinking about how good it was that he had decided to practice today. To survive here, one would definitely need strength. The next day, Zhang Huang's students were all at their desks, and their teacher stood at his desk and asked why Zhao wasn't there. Wang Yin, who was sitting at the first desk of one of the 2 rows, replied that she should come up later. Huang said okay, then they would start without her. His teaching method is different. For him, individuality is important, so he will work out everyone S style. He called Wang Yin's name. The girl flinched, and the teacher told her that she was his first student, so he would start with her. The upset girl thought about the fact that yesterday after she came home, she found out that Teacher Zhang was really a cheat, so she didn't want to study with him now. Jia Huang extended his hand towards the girl, opening his palm. He told her to show him her punch again. He should take a closer look at it. The girl who stood in front of him asked, "Isn't this place too small?" The teacher answered her that it didn't matter. He thought about the fact that when he had looked at her strength the first time, he did not yet possess the Heaven's Path library. Wang Ying stood up in a stance and slammed her fist into her teacher's palm. He quickly studied her book in the Heaven's Path library, opened his eyes and said that it was not a bad punch. The girl excitedly looked at the floor and stammered and told the teacher what she wanted to do. But then he told her that if he wasn't mistaken, her leg had been injured in battle about 2 years ago. The girl looked at Juan in surprise and asked how did he know that. In her mind she thought, how could he understand the cause and timing of the wound? The man began to explain. 3 points responsible for strength, speed, and agility are concentrated. The Huan Qiao, lower limb paralysis and hip disorders, the central channel, and the free limb point. Her opponent hit the point responsible for strength. This caused it to close and blood to start flowing in the opposite direction. This was why she was unable to punch equally with others. Wang Yin looked at the teacher with her mouth open, thinking that one of the best doctors they had invited had said the same thing, but couldn't do anything about it because it required a minimum 8th rank master. She asked the teacher if he could cure her. He walked over to his desk and replied with a smile on his face that this couple of trifles. The girl's eyes rounded at what she heard. She thought that her injury couldn't be cured now, that medicine was incapable of it, and the teacher says it's nothing. He took out a small pouch containing needles and told the girl that he had called her here specifically to cure her. Wang Ying thought, is he really capable of doing this? With a smile on his face, he called her over to him, telling her to relax her entire body. The girl sat down on the bench, stretching her injured leg forward, and thought to herself that she didn't know why, but now she had confidence in her teacher. Zhang Huang meanwhile stood in front of her, concentrated and with 2 fingers, threw one of the needles. It slammed into the girl's thigh and she shuddered, thinking that this was a technique that required brutal control over the flight of the needle to ensure that it hit the target accurately. Is it really air acupuncture? Air acupuncture requires at least a 5th combat rank. Did the worst teacher in the university really reach the 5th rank? And Huang took a few more needles and inserted them into the girl's leg. Throwing out his hand in her direction, he began to channel his power into the girl through the needles, infusing true qi. The girl squirmed in pain and sweat ran down her face. She felt the purest qi in her entire body, like spring water without a single impurity. Could this really be the teacher's qi? Could a 3rd rank master have such energy? In the entire country, no one had heard of such a mastery of refining true qi. Could it really be true? The girl looked at the teacher shockedly, and the teacher crouched down beside her to remove the needles from her leg and replied with a smile that yes, it was. Wang Yin felt her feet more precisely and distinctly than ever before. It was as if he had turned some kind of lever, and now she could feel them. She had waited so long for this she had almost lost hope. Such a severe illness, and the teacher had cured it so easily. As the man headed for his desk, the girl knelt down and thanked the teacher loudly. Someone came back and told her with a smile that since everything was fine now, let her practice hard. At this time, the rest of the students were sitting in the classroom. Yang Li seriously said that he was going to leave the teacher. Are any of them with him? Yuan Dao raised his hand and said that he wanted to leave too, but he had to be careful. The teacher might get angry. The blonde man asked, so what? Better this, the better to stay here. No, this is crazy. They don't even know what rank he is. He's sure that when Wang Yin comes out, she will convince them of that. All 3 guys turned around because the door in front of them opened. The teacher came out of the room, followed by a satisfied and smiling Wang Yin. Yang Li was surprised, and Yuan Dao said that she didn't look disappointed. The blonde man looked at the girl while frowning his eyebrows, and thought about how Wang Yin looked genuinely happy. Did he really say something worthwhile to her? Just then, the front door opened, and a smiling Zhao Yao and Yao Han, whose head was completely bandaged and only one eye was visible, appeared there. The girl guiltily apologized for being late. Zhang Huang looked at them questioningly and asked the girl if he could ask who the disabled person next to her was. The girl didn't understand what he meant, and the man got angry and shouted that he himself was disabled. He is Yao Han, a servant of the Baiyun house. He's here to test him. He will be observing this lesson. The girl turned to her uncle and asked him to calm down, and Huang waved his hand, saying that he needed absolute silence in the classroom to teach. This isn't a passable courtyard for the rabble to come in here. Getting even more angry, the man asked the teacher who he was calling a rabble. He could swat him right now, and the teacher told the girl that he couldn't handle him. Let her take care of her relative. The girl started pushing Uncle Yao out, telling him to leave. He was interfering with her classes. Left outside, Yao Han angrily shouted to Zhang Huang to stay out of his sight. Zhang Huan called out to Yang Li, saying that it was his turn now. He beckoned for him to follow him. With a serious expression on his face, the guy replied okay. While thinking to himself, he thought to himself that he would see what the man could do. If he really is trash like they say he is, he'll drop the class without a second thought. Closing the door to the room behind him, the guy asked the teacher if he wanted the guy to practice kung fu. The teacher answered him that it was useless. The guy asked why. Huang looked at him and said that at the moment Fei Hua's kick is at a beginner's level, although his Kunlun kick is top-notch. The guy asked the teacher how he knew he practiced Kunlun. He thought about the fact that no one knows about this training, not even his family. With a smile on his face, the teacher answered him that because yesterday in his Fei Hoa, he clearly saw the Kunlun style. The boy shockedly asked, "What, he's able to see that?" And in his mind he was wondering if teacher Kaoxiang didn't see it. How was Zhang able to guess? Huang asked him that despite the high level of development of the Kunlun strike, every time he used it, his armpit pain and itchy shoulder would increase, right? The guy was shocked, but more scared. He asked how the man knew. The man answered him that the body of a Kunlun technique master is perceived as the body of a dragon. And if the warrior has reached the skin and bone refining rank, there will be no side effects as the chi energy will nourish the muscles and bones of its host. But he is only at the second breath rank. His body is still too weak. Kunlun will injure him. As time goes by, the injuries will become more and more serious. If he continues like this, his arm will atrophy. It will no longer be salvageable. He's already at the stage where his sleep is disturbed, and at night the spasm can be felt all over his arm. The boy stared silently at the floor and clenched his fists so hard his hands were shaking. He suddenly dropped to his knees and asked the teacher to help him. The man walked over to the guy and with a smile on his face, lifting him off the floor, told him not to worry. He should just stop practicing Kunlun and focus on his rank. He would find a way to rectify his condition. Yang Li looked admiringly at the teacher and thought about how he was so wrong when he thought that he was a bad teacher. Now he realizes how lucky he is. The teacher is a great man, the greatest of the great. Yuan Dao and Zheng Yang stood not far from the door. When Yang Li appeared, the fatty asked him if he was leaving the teacher. The blonde man indignantly asked, "Quitting? What is he talking about? A teacher once is a teacher forever. Now that he's already here, there's no point in backing out. He doesn't understand them. All day long thinking about the way back. Aren't they ashamed?" The two boys and Zhao Yao both lowered their heads guiltily. Zhao Yao was shocked to hear that she possessed a yin body. Her teacher told her that she wasn't sick, but she had the yin body that all women dream of. Her body has a high concentration of yin energy, and with the right training, her progress will become faster by leaps and bounds. Too bad no one noticed this, and now she is practicing white jade kung fu. She is adding yin energy to her already existing yin energy, a direct path to ailments. The only way to rid her of the pains is to change her training method to one that suits her body. The girl asked, how should she train now? The man smiled and replied that tomorrow he would go to the library and try to find something for her. The girl thanked her teacher, holding a book with the title Hong Ting's 9 Paths for First Rank in his shaking hands. Yuan Dao tearfully thanked the teacher for his concern. He hugged the teacher tightly and lifted him up from the ground, saying that he was simply marvelous. He had adjusted the technique so well. Juan told him he was too close, but he wouldn't let him go. The teacher gave him a corrected version of Hong Ting's 9 Paths. It was still not the Heaven's Path technique, but it was already much better than the original. Full of confidence and willingness, Zhen Yang stood with the teacher in the same room. His strength had greatly increased after Huang's recommendation. The students were all sitting at their desks in the classroom, and their teacher was telling them that he had sorted out almost all of their individual recommendations. But success could not be achieved with mere words. But then, the front door of the classroom swung open because someone opened it with their foot and called out loudly to Zhang Huang. All the students turned around questioningly and looked at the person who burst in. Wang Ying was greatly surprised to see her brother. Wang Tao, 4th-ranked fighter, skin and bone refining. He was a guy with light brown hair that was gathered into a short ponytail on his head. He told Zhang Huan that he was cheating his disciples for his own profit, but how dare he drag his sister into it? He wants the man to stop being a teacher to Wang Ying and Zhao Yao and let them go now. Otherwise, he won't look at his title of teacher. His injuries will be his own fault. Wang Yin felt awkward and walked over to her brother. Huang said, interrupting his lesson. The guy grinned, asking, "Class, what could he teach with his skills? He's generally lucky to be well-mannered and call him teacher, so let him not fool around with him." Zhang Huang turned around to the guy and looked at him with an evil look. He ordered him to get out while releasing his tiger aura. The guy was taken aback, saying that it was the same aura as the elders. Could a 3rd-ranked guy have that kind of gaze? It's disgusting. It's disgusting to be afraid of a weakling like him. He grabbed the handle of his broad sword that was strapped behind his back and added, if someone found out he chickened out, what would happen to his part, with his name? He pulled out his sword and jumped at the teacher, yelling at him to prepare to die. The sword was already next to the teacher. The latter easily intercepted its sharp edge with his index and middle finger. Wang Tao, as long as I looked at the teacher, asking, how is this possible? How could a 3rd-rank fighter be able to stop his attack with 2 fingers? Even some chakra-opening masters couldn't do that. How could such a loser stop him? He gripped the hilt of his sword tightly, shouting to the man that it was a coincidence, just a coincidence. Let him let go of his sword and they would fight a fair fight. But there was zero response to that. The teacher was not going to let go of his sword. The boy looked at the calm teacher whose eyes were closed. Wang Tao thought about how this was impossible. Is his strength a deception? It can't be. Last time he was tested, he was only at rank 3. Furthermore, even if he had strengthened, he should only be at the 1st stage of the 4th rank now. Zhang Huang silently began to twist his sword up and down, and Wang Tao was angry, his hands trembling. With a small movement, the man threw him outside, telling him to get out. At this time, Yao Han stood outside the wooden door and listened to Wang Tao shouting to Zhang Huan that he was going to die. The man thought that with so much noise, It seems like the guy will finally teach Zhang Xuan a lesson. He will finally beg for mercy. The man opened the door a little, but at this moment Wang Tao flew into it with his back, kicked it out, and together with the man, they were printed into the wall opposite. Zhang Xuan shook out his hands, saying to the disciples, "This class continues." All of the disciples looked at their teacher in shock, thinking that this was a rank 4 supreme power. He had been defeated so easily. Is a teacher from the end of the ranking list capable of this? No. Did it mean that the teacher was hiding his strength? Holding their sore heads, Yao Han and Wang Tao climbed out from under the ruins. The man asked Mr. Wang Tao, didn't he want to teach Zhang a lesson? What happened? Smiling awkwardly, the guy replied that it was just that he had just used a new technique, but he was lucky since he hadn't fully mastered it. The man looked at the guy and asked, "New technique? But he had exposed this guy, right?" Wang Tao replied that he was going to, but the university has a strict rule not to interrupt classes, so they just need to wait. The man replied that was fine. Since they have some free time, he wanted to ask about something. The guy told him to ask, and he thought the important thing was that he stopped talking about Zhang. Yao Han asked, "Is there a female teacher in this university that has B in her name? Does she have any admirers?" The guy hesitated and asked again, "Does the name have a B in it?" He must be talking about Shen Biru, that's the local ideal of beauty. And the most obvious fan is Shang Bin. But this Zhang Huang, this toad, was also running after her. The man thought to himself that now all he had to do was to find out that they really had a conflict. Then he would be sure that it was him. Shang Bin clarified to Chao Xiong, had Zhang Huang really deceived his disciple? The teacher with freckles on his cheeks replied that yes. That was why he addressed him as the grandson of the academy elder. Isn't he the one in charge of teaching? The mint-haired teacher slammed his fist on the table and replied that no, he would decide that himself. He had always wanted to teach this Zhang a lesson. In his mind, if he attacked him there, it would put him down in the eyes of precious Shen Biru, and now he had a good excuse. He stood from behind the table and told Chao Xiong to go with him because he might need his help. And if Zhang Huang doesn't wise up, they will make him a cripple. When the two teachers approached Zhang Huang's courtyard, they saw Wang Tao and Yao Han there. The mint-haired teacher asked the guy in a serious voice why he was here and not in training. The guy saw the teacher and explained that his sister had been tricked by a teacher and he was here to deal with it. Shang Bin furrowed his brows and asked, "What? He dared to lie even to Madame Wang? Looks like he really needs to put his brain in place." The guy pointed at the man standing next to him and said that it was the assistant of Miss Zhao's family, Yao Han. His underlings had also been tricked. The teacher was even more surprised as he asked, "Has the Yao family been harmed as well? In that case, they should go together. They will teach that rascal a lesson." Meanwhile, Zhang Huang held a book in his hands and explained to his disciples that Hongting's 9-path system, although basic, had many flaws. At this time, the disciples were thinking that the teacher's lectures were indeed very enlightening. He can point out the flaws of even the most effective techniques. It is even shocking, all his words need to be thought about for a long time. Yang Ling thought there, even his father is not comparable to teacher Zhang in teaching. This is impossible to describe. Huang tore his gaze away from the book and looked at the students. He thought, what was wrong with them? They were all looking at the teacher with loving eyes, saying how lucky they were to get to see him. Just then, the door to their classroom opened again and all 4 of them walked inside. Zhang frowned his eyebrows and looked at them, wondering what teacher Shang Bin and teacher Chao Xiong were doing here. The mint-haired man smirked and said that he did not expect Zhang Huang to stoop to cheating. He couldn't believe that he had cheated Miss Wang Yin and Miss Zhao Yao. Huang looked at them seriously and replied that if he had a matter for him, he would listen to it after class. Shang Bin grinned and asked, "Really?" He walked right up to Zhang and said that he wanted him to let these disciples go right now. Otherwise, he would have to force him. He would definitely regret what he had done. Zhang Huang asked Shang Bin what the latter was going to do. Doesn't Honorable Shang Bin know that fighting between teachers is forbidden in Hongting? Slightly tilting his head to the side, the man replied that the rules of the university were created for order within these walls, but he was breaking it, so an exception could be made for his sake. Does he think there will be someone in the academy to stand up for him? Huan asked in response. Is he doing this because he was hurt by his words yesterday? Does he not think Shen Biru will be angry when he finds out about his behavior? Shang Bin asked. Does he really want to catch him doing this? In any case, he has already decided to teach him a lesson, so he doesn't care about such nonsense. Yao Han's eye widened because he realized that this man was a fan of Shun Biru, and he had a conflict with Zhang yesterday. He exclaimed that this man who hit him last night. Shang Bin turned around and looked at the man without realizing yet, but exactly at this moment he received a punch in the nose. Covering his face with one hand, he asked the man, "What is he doing? Is he crazy? Why did he do that?" Angry Yao Han said as if he himself didn't realize what he deserved. The young teacher shouted that he didn't care. If the man hit again, he would retaliate in the same way. He told him, "Don't you dare be rude to him." But then his eyes widened in fright because the man rushed at him and continued to hit him. A surprised Tao Xiong asked Wang Tao what was even going on. The guy spread his hands and replied that he didn't know. Then the teacher shouted for them to stop, and a satisfied Zhang Huang watched this and thought that just as he had planned, a fight had broken out. Trying to tear the man away from the teacher, Mr. Wang Tao told him to calm down and tell him what had happened already. The man lashed out and said to let him go. He wasn't done yet. Chao Xiong was holding the beaten Shang Bin, who was saying that he was in so much pain. That one was too strong. The red-haired teacher was telling him to calm down too, and the grandson of the elder shouted to the man that he would take revenge on him. This is when Zhang Huang told them enough. If they have a disagreement, please let them solve it not in his class. Otherwise, he will go to the education department. Shang Bin stopped and thought about the fact that he was in too bad a state right now. No one should find out about this. He shouted that okay, but not everyone would get theirs yet. Walking out of Zhang Huang's class, Yuan Dao laughed and said that today's class was exciting. Zheng Yang replied with a smile on his face that yes, it was. Especially the part with that teacher and servant of the Yao family. Yang Li added that also the real strength of teacher Zhang. It's a real revelation. Walking up to her Uncle Yao, Zhang Yao asked him, "What's wrong?" The man started to awkwardly make excuses. Wang Yin was the last to leave the courtyard, waving to the teacher and saying, "See you later." Huang said goodbye to her as well. As soon as the girl crossed the threshold and her brother grabbed her hand, saying that now they were going home. The girl asked him why. She lives at school now, she doesn't need to go home. The guy replied that no, that was out of the question. She was going back and right now. Tears were protruding in the girl's eyes. Shang Bin walked quickly down the open hallway, letting on that he was beaten up for nothing. This was a disgrace to him. Yao Han should have been with them. Tao Xiong was also home, replying that for sure. He and Zhang must be in on it. The grandson of the elder continued that exactly. He didn't do anything to Yao. He's sure that he attacked him because he wanted to teach Zhang a lesson. But then he abruptly turned to the red-haired teacher and asked that he was sure that Zhang was forcibly teaching Yang Li. Tao Xiong replied that yes, that is for sure. He is sure the boy was forced to stay there. Shang Bin said that's great. Since he is so sure, let him formalize the application for the will detector right now, and let it not be to raise the penalty to the maximum. This is the best way to put Zhang in his place. Chao Xiong grinned and replied that yes, Wang family mansion. The man ordered Wang Ying to kneel down. The girl did so, looking guiltily at the floor. The man asked her if she realized what she had done. Did she realize who she had chosen to be her teacher? Doesn't she know that he is the worst teacher in the entire academy? The girl resisted, saying that teacher Zhang is actually not what he seems to be. The teacher is very talented. The man who had his back turned to the girl, clenching his teeth, asked, "Really?" The girl nodded her head with a smile, replying that yes. But her father immediately turned to her and shouted angrily that he was only capable of raising children to be trash like himself. Why did she think he was the right teacher for her? Father told Wang Yin that he didn't even think that she could have this kind of problem with her. Doesn't she know what her teacher's ranking is? Just then the door to their hall opened and 3 elderly men and a young boy walked in. The old men told her that she was just confused and should listen to the head of the family. Let her look at Wang Yang, the guy who stood behind their backs and showed off his muscles. He had studied under Lu Sen. His strength had increased by 40% in just one lesson. The girl quietly said that with teacher Zhang, her strength had increased by more than 100%. And he had cured her legs. One of the elders asked that even if the most famous healer invited by them and their family couldn't cure, how could some scum? The second secondary laughed and asked that increasing strength by 100%, also miraculously healing the leg. Let them not make him laugh. The third one told Mrs. Wang Yin that even if she lies to cover up this liar, it won't get better. He had never been to his class, but he was sure that he was incapable of healing her leg. The girl clenched her fists tightly behind her little and then shouted loudly, How can they talk like that about Teacher Zhang when they have never even met him once? She refused to leave his classroom. The three elders froze and then laughed loudly. Her father looked at her indignantly and asked what kind of nonsense she was talking about. She would drop his class today. Otherwise, the doors to this house would be closed to her. The man shouted years to the departing girl that if she walked out that door, she would never come back. She went to one of the columns and said it was a column for measuring power. If they didn't believe the words, she would prove it to them with actions. She struck the column with her fist and then her foot. The elders were surprised when they saw the number 120. They asked that wasn't her strength yesterday, only 53? And her legs are working as they should. And the kick with them is 205? She pointed at the pillar and shouted that she wouldn't have achieved that if it wasn't for Teacher Zhang. Shocked, her father said, "He really did fix her legs." The girl replied that he did. The man asked her what the man was talking about in his lecture. The girl excitedly replied that she could tell him, but she didn't understand everything because Teacher Zhang was talking about two deep things. She remembered a little bit of it. After listening to the girl, the head of the family thought, impregnating the breath with inner chi. How is it possible to so subtly train a mere first rank? This is a lecture from a true master of his craft. It's as if he's taking a new look at what he's already learned. If he had heard this in his time, who knows what he would have achieved now. The man loudly declared to his daughter not to leave this teacher for anything, and then he smiled and asked her to ask him if he could accept their other fighters, and if possible he could be his apprentice too. The elders exclaimed, Wang Honggu, that he was the clan head. How could he become the disciple of someone with such a reputation? Would they also think of their family? The man awkwardly replied that yes. The elders then laughed and told the girl that she could see that they were not like the head of the family, ordinary old men. The other continued that they are not the face of the family. Could she ask if Teacher Zhang would take them as his disciples? Hearing this, Wang Hong exclaimed that they didn't have an ounce of shame. Wang Ying felt embarrassed. At sunset, coming to the library courtyard, Huang thought that although his skills had improved a lot, he still didn't know much about martial arts. He needs to learn now, otherwise he wouldn't be able to properly train his students. He walked up to the Honorable Mo and bowed to him. The old man asked him, had he really come again? The guy replied with a smile that he wanted to see some martial arts material. The old man answered him that not today. The guy asked in surprise, why? Teacher Shun Bi came up the stairs and greeted the Honorable Mo, saying that she would take some books. The old man recognized her and told her to come in. The girl smiled brightly and thanked him. Stopping at the door, the girl heard Zhang Huang telling the elder that it was unfair. He and Teacher Shen have the same goal of reading a book. Why then is he not allowed to enter? The old man grudgingly replied that Teacher Shen is really seeking knowledge. What about him? Huang replied that he also wants to learn. The girl looked at him, thinking to herself, didn't he like her? Why didn't he speak to her but as usual? She turned to Honorable Mo with a smile, saying that she was sure that Teacher Zhang had no evil intentions. Why wouldn't he let him in? Still, he has the same right to do so as all teachers. Honorable Mo said that since Teacher Shun Bi insisted, he would let him in. But if he saw him disturbing the order again, he would be blamed himself. The old man looked at him sternly. Zhang Huang turned to the woman and smiled, thanking her. The woman replied that she was welcome. The guy opened the library doors, saying that he would go first then. The girl froze because she thought he would take the opportunity to talk to her. Walking between the shelves of books, Juan thought about how he didn't expect it to be this hard to get in here. Next time they would definitely not let him in. He looked around the library and thought that it wasn't that big. If he hurried, he could go through all the books in a day and he wouldn't have to agonize to get in here again. We need to get started soon. Honorable Mo heard the noise from the library again and became angry. He stood up from his bench, remembering that the boy had said he wanted to study. The old man entered the library and saw the lad walking quickly between the shelves, taking a new book and flipping through it. The elder thought about how he wished he knew what was on the kid's mind. The lad produced another book, the title of which was Methods of Planting Vines. The elder looked at it in surprise, thinking, is he really interested in how to plant grapes? What is he even looking for? The guy then took out a few more books, such as Relationship Between Men and Women, Law of Yin and Yang, Treatment of Scurvy, Refining Textbook. The old man exclaimed that does he really take everything? He was angry again, thinking that as he expected, he was once again creating nonsense. When he comes out, he will teach him a lesson. Shun-Bi watched from afar as Huang concentratedly leafed through the pages of yet another book. She wondered why Honorable Mo didn't want to let him in. Or maybe he knew she was coming to the library today and was trying to get her attention. She furrowed her eyebrows, deciding she wasn't going to let him run amok in the library. She walked up behind Teacher Zhang and angrily asked what he was doing. Turning the pages, he replied that he was reading. The woman hummed and crossed her arms over her chest, turning away from the man. That's what she said. Reading? Don't let him think he looks smarter or more attractive that way. She asked him to drop off the library. She, Shun-Bi, doesn't like it at all. Huang replied that he does. The girl said it's better that way. But when she heard that the rustling of the pages didn't stop, her eyes rounded because Huang just walked on and continued leafing through other books. The girl got angry and shouted that didn't he understand what she said? If he continued on, he definitely wouldn't get her attention that way. But Huang turned angrily toward her and asked if she was all right. If she has nothing better to do, let her go and draw circles in the corner. Let her leave him alone. The girl exclaimed, shocked that did he really dare to talk to her like that. Then she looked at him seriously and said okay, since he decided to play smart, they would see how long he would last. Standing with a book in her hands, Shun-Bi thought about the fact that she had been waiting for 6 or 7 hours, and this guy kept flipping through books. If he really wanted to get her attention, he would have stopped long ago. Slamming the book shut, Huang thought about the fact that he had finally moved all the books to the Heaven's Path library. He had found a good training method that suited Zhao Yao. After putting the book back, he turned his head and saw Shun-Bi standing there with her back to him. He thought, it's already 7 o'clock and she's still here. He didn't care about her though. He had done what he wanted to do. It was time to go back. He crossed the threshold into the library, but then the Honorable Mo's cane appeared in front of him and extended it, telling him to stand. Honorable Mo told Teacher Zhang Xuan that he was now not allowed to enter this library. Let him not come back again. Not too upset. Huang asked why. The old man shouted, does he really hold him for a fool? He just stands books, doesn't read, doesn't make notes. It's clear to everyone that he's spoiling himself. Is that what he calls reading? The boy smirked, thinking it pissed him off that he was reading too fast. But he doesn't need to go to the library anymore, so he doesn't care. He replied to the old man that okay, he's right, he needs to leave. No sooner had Huang walked down the stairs than Shun-Bi called out to him, asking him to wait for a second. She walked out of the library and Huang sighed and asked, what else? The girl smiled brightly and said he had read so much, she thought he should remember something. The guy turned to her and asked what she meant. Shun-Bi said that she had just seen him reading 8 Ways to Improve Medicines. So she wanted to ask something about the contents of the book. In her mind, she thought he was just pretending to read. They'll see how he gets out of it. With a disgruntled look on his face, Juan replied, okay. What exactly is she interested in? Just have him hurry up. He needs to get there in time for dinner. The girl continued to smile, and in her mind she was angry, asking what kind of attitude was this, like she was begging him. She started to say that she didn't understand the phrase, if you use all the herbs separately, you may have trouble making the pills, so it's better to mix all the ingredients at once. Huang exclaimed that this was a mistake. The correct phrase would be, only the right order of adding the herbs will help you make good quality pills. The meaning of this phrase is that the ingredients should be added separately and in a specific order. And she initially misquoted it. Good thing she decided to clarify. The girl looked at him shocked. I think she purposely made a mistake in the phrase to test him. But how was he able to give the correct answer? It would be impossible to do so without reading 8 Ways to Improve Medicines. Did he really study it? Shun-Bi wanted to ask him how, but Honorable Mo interrupted her, telling her to wait. He was thinking about the fact that the 8 Ways to Improve Medicines was a baseline that had been mastered by more than one generation of medics. Even if you haven't studied this stuff, you can easily hear it from other sources. The old man said he also had a question. How does he understand the phrase, "Qi travels through the body, the mind travels through the world"? With an even more disgruntled face, Huang asked him that he understands that it's like 2 times 2 for a mathematician, right? It means that just as Qi travels and fills the body, the mind travels the world, fills it with knowledge and subdues it with skill. This phrase is from the treatise On Qi and Blood by Pak Ming. The book is in the 27th row, and one can read this fragment on page 69. From what he heard, the elder was speechless. He thought about the fact that an elder had asked him about it recently, but he couldn't answer. And even later, that old man couldn't find an explanation in the library. Stammering, the old man told teacher Shenbi that he needed to check. The girl said she would go too. Mo thought he didn't trust him, so he needed to double-check. Walking over to the right place, the old man picked up a book that had "About Qi and Blood" written on it. Opening the right page, he thought, how did the one do it? He even memorized the location of the book and the page. The old man didn't find the answer. After turning the whole library upside down, he couldn't find this book. It's a rare and difficult book, but he read it too. From the street came a shout from Huang, who told the Honorable Mo that he had nothing to do here. He left. Shenbi turned around and called out to teacher Zhang, telling him to wait. She ran outside, and the old man collapsed on the floor, warily turned around thinking, is he really the worst teacher? If he really has such a teaching ability, why is he in last place? When the girl approached him, Huang asked unhappily, "What's the matter? He's late for dinner." Bashfully smiling, Shenbi said that she hadn't eaten yet either. Annoyed Huang, she asked him a question. He replied, "Just don't let her say she wants to have dinner together." With a disgruntled expression on his face, he answered her that if she is hungry, then let her go eat. What was required of him? The girl thought about the fact that so many people invite her but she refuses, and now she's giving him a chance. And him, how can he socialize like that with a pretty girl? Smiling awkwardly, she told him that she thought, what if they did it together? She would buy him lunch. Hearing about the free lunch, Zhang Huang immediately turned to her with a smile and replied that it was fine. But he's going to eat a lot. Ordinary buns and pancakes won't be enough. Holding back, the girl said that was fine. The Library of Heaven's Path could see the disadvantages and advantages of techniques, and could read the opponent's abilities like a book, but was unable to reveal a woman's heart to Zhang Xuan. He didn't realize that with just a few words, he had driven the first beauty of the university to the brink. The two of them were walking along a stone path through the bamboo forest. Walking ahead, the excited Shenbi thought about the fact that this guy had spent half a day with her but didn't say a word. She turned to him because she wanted to ask him something but froze when she saw green waves of energy emanating from the guy. She thought shockedly, what is this? Second-rank mind power, the calmness of the waters. Martial artists develop in not only the body but also the mind. The higher the rank of mental strength, the greater the trainability, the greater the ability to perceive and process information. Shenbi thought that the mind was much harder to train than the body. It was difficult to subdue. Only the head of the academy had reached this rank of mind. Did it mean that his teacher's test results were fake? He did it to comprehend the second rank of mind with the help of other people's rebuke and bullying. She snorted, thinking that this was a real tiger in a pig's skin. She would definitely expose him. Unaware of the girl's speculation, Juan followed her and thought about being hungry. While they were walking, Zhang Huang suddenly felt something. Looking at his hands, from which small waves of energy were emanating, he thought about the fact that he just thought that this was a beautiful place. But now he had obtained a second rank of mind? Clenching his fist contentedly, he thought that everything was correct. He had been reborn into a new life. Moreover, with his new training methodology, and here was a body filled with the purest qi, so it was no surprise. The two teachers walked up to one of the busy and crowded restaurants, which was a large 2-story restaurant with light coming out of it. Looking at the restaurant a little shocked, Huang thought about the fact that he had always eaten in small restaurants and canteens, so he didn't expect her to bring him here. And Shenbi thought that they would see how long he would pretend. They walked up to the entrance. Holding a small pitcher and a cup, a smiling Tao Xiong told Shan Bingyu not to get so angry. He has already submitted a petition for the will detector. Tomorrow the university will review it and Zhang will then be punished. Next time, together with Elder Shan's beast, Zhang would definitely be in trouble. The angry and swollen Shunbin slammed his fist on the table, saying that the heavenly lion was his grandfather's favorite, but it was unlikely that he would be able to control it. The red-haired man replied that it was not necessary. If they got him drunk and fed, it would be much easier. The waiter placed a hot-baked fish on the table and smilingly said their order was ready. If they need anything else, let them ask. Shunbin said that he had a lion standing in his backyard, so let them make sure he was fed as well. The waiter replied that yes, of course. Tao Xiong told teacher Shang that he heard that Hongtin Pavilion is a very prestigious restaurant. Its owner is always cold to his customers. Why is he so kind now? The swollen man replied that the pavilion is so famous because its creator, Hong Hao, is a strong and powerful man. He doesn't know why he didn't become one of the elders of the academy, and they are so warmly welcomed because his grandfather was a good friend to Hong Hao. He is always welcome here. Cao Xiong laughed and replied that this is how it is. But then he turned his head, surprised, and told his friend to look. Isn't that Shenbi and Zhang? Looking at them, Shangbin exclaimed, asking what is she doing with this loser? He had invited her here so many times, but she wouldn't accept. He can't believe it. The red-haired teacher confirmed that it's a delusion of some sort. But he knows how to open Miss Shenbi's eyes and show her what a scumbag Zhang really is, and also raise Shangbin's authority in her eyes. The latter looked at him in surprise, asking hopefully, did he really have a plan? Zhang Huang put the chopsticks on the table and leaned back in his seat contentedly, clutching his stomach and saying, "This is delicious." It had been a long time since he had been so full, and Shenbi sadly thought about the fact that all he did was eat. He didn't pay any attention to her. She asked the waiter for the bill. He said with a smile that he hoped they enjoyed everything. That would be 1280 coins. The smile fell off the girl's face and she asked, shocked, "Why so much?" They had ordered for a maximum of 100 coins. The waiter with a smile pointed to the teapot on their table and said that this wine cost 1200 coins. The girl said they didn't order it, they were just served this bottle. She thought it was free. The waiter raised one eyebrow unhappily, replying that, "It makes sense that one should pay for the wine, no? If they had wanted to, they would have inquired about the price. No need to blame them for their problems." The girl grimaced and said she didn't have that amount with her. If they put it on her account, she would return the money later. The waiter told her that if they couldn't afford it, then why did they order? Now they had to give the money back now. No one's gonna feed them for free. Someone came up to him and put a hand on his shoulder, asking him what's going on here. What's all the commotion? It's not good to break discipline. The waiter turned around and saw teacher Shangbin. Smiling awkwardly, he replied that there is such an incident. These people have eaten but can't pay for their order. Shangbin indignantly told teacher Zhang that if he didn't have money, he shouldn't have pretended to have it. He is disgracing both himself and Miss Shenbi. And Huang looked at him unhappily and questioningly. Shangbin told the teacher that he had better stop. He didn't think that he could fall so low as to build himself up to be such a generous person. Smirking to himself, he thought about the fact that he had asked for Zhang to be served an overpriced drink that he wouldn't be able to pay for, and when he looked like a lowlife, he would come and save the beautiful Shenbi. Then Shenbi will definitely be his. 2 birds with 1 stone. That's a great plan. That's when the girl started and called out to teacher Shan. He happily turned to her and with a smile on his face was ready to listen to her. But the angry girl asked if he said she was being generous. Shangbin said fearfully, "Of course he told me about her. He was talking about teacher Zhang. He has no money and he treats you. This is a disgrace to the teacher." Zhang, standing behind him, coughed and said that it was not him treating, but teacher Shenbi treating him. The man was shocked to hear this. He couldn't believe that Shenbi was giving him a treat. It's impossible. He invites her to dinner every day and she invited him? Shenbi asked gloomily. He said that he was saying she was pretending to be generous, right? For a teacher, it's a disgrace. She's a disgrace, isn't she? The man waved his hands, defending himself, saying no. He meant something else, something completely different. Cao Xiong whispered in his ear that it was even better. Let him pay her bill. Shangbin continued that he meant to say that teacher Shenbi's bill would be paid by him. He smiled, thinking that this would definitely calm the girl down. She seemed to like him already. But the girl replied that she didn't need it. She would pay it herself so she wouldn't pretend to be generous. She took out a small piece of jewelry, held it out to the waiter, and said that this jade pendant is worth at least 5,000 gold coins. She promises. Shangbin wanted to stop her, but she slipped the pendant into the waiter's hands, saying that she would leave it as collateral and then redeem it later. The man turned to Cao Xiong and excitedly said that things were not going according to plan. What should he do now? The red-haired man didn't know what to answer. Zhang Huang calmly said that there was no need to pledge such a valuable item. This food is not worth that much. He stood up, walked over to her, and sheltered her from the waiter, saying that she was giving him money for cheating her so viciously. The waiter got angry and replied that their restaurant is a prestigious and honest place. What kind of cheating is he talking about? After saying that, they would definitely not get away with it. Shangbin smirked and said that the owner was pissed off. Cao Xiong added that now Zhang will not be happy. And Shanbi looked at teacher Zhang in surprise, thinking why would he say such a thing? This restaurant is too influential. Why would he want to get in trouble? Zhang Huang calmly looked at the restaurant owner and said, since he said that, he will say why he is so displeased. For example, fragrant bear meat in violets. You have to marinate the bear meat in violet extract for 3 days to make it, but they only marinate it for half a day and then roast it to make the flavor at least somewhat similar. The extract didn't soak into the meat at all, so ordering such a dish is throwing money down the drain. Other diners began to gather around. Someone asked what was going on here. They answered that it was still unclear. It looked like they were being cheated. And Juan went on to say that the Honghu guppies they are passing off as wild are actually captive bred. You can tell by the small and thin fins and tail. The waiter looked at the guy angrily, thinking about the fact that he was substituting all these foods behind the boss's back. But it's hard to notice even a professional foodie. How could he? He pointed his finger at the guy and shouted what kind of nonsense he was talking about. It's just a coincidence. He needed hard evidence. Meanwhile, he thought to himself that he couldn't admit it, otherwise the restaurant's reputation would be ruined. Juan did not hesitate, took a small kettle of wine, and said that if this wine is really so valuable, it is not a waste to pay 1,200 coins for it. He started pouring the contents onto the floor, and the waiter at this moment was thinking fearfully that no, he wouldn't dare. The guy took out a burning wick and threw it into the wine. It caught fire, and a horrible smell spread throughout the restaurant. Everyone started covering their noses and mouths, saying, "What is that stench? How can it stink like that?" Pointing his hand at the fire, Juan said that it really tastes like drunken immortality. If one drinks it, it's beneficial, but in this bottle, it's only harmful to them, and this stench is the best proof of that. Hearing all this, the visitors started yelling and screaming at the owner, telling him to give the money back, and the man stood there looking at the floor thinking, how did this even happen? Didn't they say that guy was just a loser? And how could he have figured out all his tricks? Is he a professional chef? That's terrible. If the bosses find out about this, he's finished. If it wasn't for those two today. Shang Bin looked at his comrade and excitedly asked, what even happened? Tao Xiong replied that he didn't understand himself. Shang Bin asked the man what is happening to him, and the man got very angry, turned to the teachers and told them to get out. The two of them, let them get out of here. And for him not to see them again. Shang Bin asked his friend, is he crazy? Chao Xiong pulled him towards the exit, replying that he thought they should really go. With a smile on his face, Xiang Huang told Shun Bi that he didn't think they would get the bill. He motioned for her to leave, and she nodded. Looking at the trailing Zhang leaving, she thought that he was really good. He easily determined the quality of the dishes. Maybe he did so poorly on the teacher's test because he was developing his culinary skills? Smirking, Huang thought to himself that it was good that the Heaven's Path Library was also able to determine the flaws of dishes when tasting them. Shun Bi caught up with Zhang outside and thanked him for saving her today. With a satisfied smile, he replied that he didn't have to. The girl said that they didn't get a quiet dinner this time. She would invite him again. The guy was shocked. He looked at her and started waving his hands, saying he shouldn't. Really, he was full for days ahead. He thought about how it was nice to eat with a beautiful girl, but he just didn't have time to fight off all her suitors. The girl looked at him unhappily, thinking it was like she was inviting an old grandfather to dinner. Juan waved his hand, and with a smile on his face said that it was good that they had only eaten together and nothing more. And now he had to go. There were still things to do. Just then, there was a shout behind them that called out to Zhang Huang and told him to stand where he was standing. He would not leave this place today. It was Shang Bin who was rolling up his sleeves. Shun Bi turned to him fearfully and asked what was he up to. The man answered her to move away because this was only between him and Teacher Zhang. He pointed his hand at the guy and loudly stated that if he thought he was a man, let him stop hiding behind the woman's back and let him fight him. With a clearly disgruntled and tired look, Juan asked, what's wrong with hiding behind a woman? This is what he calls conflict resolution. What's wrong with hiding behind a woman to calm the insolent men? These words were like a knife to Shang Bin's heart. He exclaimed that things had gone wrong again. He's also making excuses. Huang turned around, waved his hand and asked Teacher Shun Bi to take care of these two. He has some things to do. He's leaving. To himself, he thought to himself, are they serious? He's a migrant, what he's been through. Did they really want to provoke him with this? He doesn't care about what they say at all. From what he heard, the girl's mouth fell open, not knowing what to say, and Shang Bin once again shouted to Zhang Huan to stand where he stands. He will die today, or he is not Shang Bin. He shouted loudly, summoning the heavenly lion. A large lion slowly came out of the dark alley and stopped behind Shang Bin's back. The man told him to kill the guy, and if he did, He would feed him deliciously every day. He would even give him the pill his grandfather had promised him. Shenbi went up to him and asked him, "What is he doing? Killing a teacher is the most horrible offense." "This is anticipation." The man's eye narrowed and he told the girl that teacher Zhang was trying to kill him, and the lion was just defending his master and struck a particularly strong counterstrike. It was only self-defense. Who would say anything against him? He then shouted to the lion, asking what was he procrastinating about. Let him do it. The lion roared loudly and rushed forward. Watching this, the girl called out to Zhang loudly and fearfully. The huge animal ran up to the guy. Shenbi's legs wouldn't hold her and she collapsed on the ground, covering her mouth with her hand and thinking that it was all her fault. Looking at the lion in front of her, Shang Bin asked, "What's the silence? Is it finally dead?" Here he started laughing loudly, saying that he was dead and there was no fixing it. But a frightened Tao Xiong called out Zhang Huang's name and asked, "What is this?" The annoyed Shang Bin said that this time everything definitely went according to plan. "What is he panicking about?" Chao Xiong pointed his finger forward, replying that no, it was not like that. Let him look over there. The man kept saying that it was nonsense. He was definitely a dead man, and turning his head, his jaw almost dropped. He asked loudly, "What?" In front of them stood Zhang Huang, who was smiling and scratching the head of the obedient lion. Shang Bin shouted that this can't be happening. What the hell is going on here? Clutching his head, he thought that the celestial lion was his grandfather's pet. It was very proud and stroppy, getting angry even when he just touched it, let alone stroking its head. Why does he flock to Zhang like a faithful dog? He shouted angrily at the sky lion, asking what was he doing. Let him kill him now, just let him kill him, and then he'll buy him whatever he wants. But the lion didn't listen to him and continued to play with the boy. Juan gave the man a displeased look and said to the lion, "It's the one who is so noisy, let him shut him up." The lion immediately turned its head towards Shang Bin and looked at him angrily. The man asked, what was he up to? The animal leered at him and struck him with its paw, causing the man to fly off and hit the wall. Chao Xiong immediately ran to him, asking, "How is he? Is he all right?" With tears in his eyes, the man thought, "What is going on here? He is his grandfather's pet, no respect at all." The animal returned to Zhang again. The man patted his head, saying that he did everything right. A surprised Shen Bi asked teacher Zhang how he did it. He thought for a moment, then stroked his chin and said that this celestial lion was very cooperative, although maybe he thought he was handsome. The girl looked at him irritably, thinking about the fact that this was a celestial lion, and if there was anyone he would respect willingly, it would be another male celestial lion. Besides, Shang Bin is definitely prettier than him. Huang happily waved his hand, and told the girl who was still sitting on the ground that they would see each other again. He then told the sky lion that he should go home too. He turned around and walked off, thinking about how he didn't realize the library even worked for beasts. This lion had quite a few flaws, so it was easy to tame him. Shen Bi stood up and told Zhang to stand. He still hadn't explained why the lion was obeying him. Huang looked at her exhaustedly, called her big sister and said that he wanted to live a long life. But next to her, trouble kept following him around. Let her just let him go. Seo merged and yelled at him, asking what kind of big sister is she to him. He himself is big sister, no, his whole family is big sister. Huang made a cute face and said, okay, he is a big sister, so let him go already. Looking at him, Shun Bi laughed and replied that fine, let him go, meet tomorrow, same restaurant. Wu Cho, the waiter, was sitting on his knees in front of a man who was asking him how he dared. He was changing the ingredients of the dishes for profit. Wu Cho was on his knees, making excuses that it might be his fault, but that guy was much worse. He said this in front of everyone, not hiding the fact that he didn't respect him at all. The old man, who was sitting in a wide-backed wooden chair, slammed his fist on the armrest. He had gray hair and a gray beard. He shouted that this is nonsense. Did he think no one would ever notice his solution? And he wouldn't disgrace his establishment with it? He's got 5 days to restore the good name of his establishment. Then he will forgive his deception, or else he will die. The man then added, asking, who is this guy? Who gave him the right to publicly insult Hongqin restaurant? With a look of horror on his face, Wu Cho replied that it was the last-ranked teacher, Zhang Huang. The old man clenched his fist, causing the ring on his thumb to burst. In his thoughts, he asked, did this brat dare to defame the reputation of his restaurant? The next day, Zhang Huang walked around the university campus, sighing and holding his head. He thought to himself, what a lot of trouble. He never thought that one dinner could bring so much trouble. Okay, he has other important things to do. For example, he needs to figure out how to advance to rank 6. No ordinary teacher can just access information about the rank of opening chakras. You can only get a copy of these documents with the permission of the elders. But the last time he was tested, he only had rank 3. If he made this request now, he would simply become a lab rat. But if he remembered correctly, Zhang Xuan City sold many useful items, including guides on growth techniques. If he could flip through them, it would solve a lot of problems. He decided to go see if his guesses were correct. Tianshuan Shopping District. Walking through the wide streets, Huang thought about the fact that it was so lively here. But he didn't remember anything about this place. This guy was just an ordinary teacher with a threadbare salary, so it's not surprising. There are so many things for sale here, but he doesn't remember what they're for. He decided to see if the library would help him. He walked over to one of the counters where there were various trinkets in boxes. A young guy, who turned out to be a salesman, cheerfully asked if he was looking for something. His wares are quality and sure to please him. He vouched for it. Taking one round bell in his hands, Juan said with a smile that he would take a look. The guy told him that this bell was made by a true master. It has an unusual effect and for only 50 coins. Once in the library of the Heavenly Path, Juan was pleased with what he had gotten. He read that it is a bell that causes dizziness when exposed for long periods of time. Effective against rank 1 fighters made in Qingyun's workshop. He walked out of the library and the guy told him that if he wanted, he could sell it at a discount, for only 20 coins. Huang thought about it being made by a real master, of course. Qingyun's workshop specializes in making fakes, and not of particularly good quality. With the Heaven's Path library, he didn't have to worry about buying a fake. He asked the vendor if they had the ice sun grass. The guy cheerfully said not to let the guy think he was bragging, but he had great luck. He's the only one in the entire market that sells this herb. He pointed to the side and said there were 2 boxes with 5 plants in each. The top box was open, and there were 5 small flowers on a white cloth, and the stem of one of them was curled up. The seller said 100 gold coins per plant. How much does he need? Juan replied that he would have to look at it first. After touching the flower he was in the library, he realized it was really her. The guy wasn't lying. It grows on top of the mountains, but it likes sunlight, so it contains a lot of spiritual energy. The combination of hot and cold, yin and yang, is the perfect medicine for Zhao Yao's blocked points. But Tu Zhanghuang noticed the 5th flower and asked, "Why is one of the stems dried up? Did he keep it in the wrong conditions?" The guy waved his hand, asking with a smile, "What nonsense. He's made a career out of this grass. He knows how to handle it. This stalk was originally like this even when he harvested it. If he wants, he can give it away for half price, only 50 coins. This twisted flower," Huang read in the library of the Heavenly Path that this stem is the progenitor. It is indeed him. The medicine from such a one is twice as valid as that from an ordinary stem. If the seller realized this, he feared the price would be greatly increased. Huang said with a smile that he would take this one. Let them pack it for him. He realized that with this herb, the problem would be solved much faster, and he also wouldn't need any other ingredients. The guy bagged the plants, said he was ready, held out his palm and said 50 coins per guy. Huang replied that was fine. But slipping his hand into his pocket, he cursed, realizing that with this library he had completely forgotten about money. The guy that was in this body before him was the worst in the academy, and after his low scores in the teacher's tests, they cut his salary even more. He doesn't even have 10 coins in his pocket, let alone 50. "Salesman?" Asked him what's wrong. Pulling out a few coins in his palm, Juan awkwardly asked if he could sell him this stock for 8 coins. The guy slammed the table, called him insolent, and asked, "Is he kidding me?" Sure, the stem isn't of the highest quality, but he still risked his life to get it. He wants to value his life at 8 coins. He doesn't have time for jokes. Juan waved his head and said sadly that he wasn't joking about him either. Then he smirked and asked if he was sure he wouldn't sell it. The vendor held a box of the plant in his hand and shouted that it was nonsense. Sure, the stem isn't of the highest quality, but it still has medicinal properties. At most, it's worth 30 or 40 coins. 8 coins? Is he kidding me? Let him get out of here or he'll call the guards. Huang said with an awkward smile that there's no need to call security. He's really interested in buying it. He doesn't have any money, but he's not a thief. Maybe he'll give it to him for free. The boy looked at the teacher in shock and wondered if he was sure he had everything at home. He came here with no money, so he expects gifts. The salesman leaned his hand on the table and asked with a smirk, did he really think he would accept it? He would give it to him for free if he could call him a sage. Juan replied that there was no need to call him that, but the man doesn't believe him. Let him hit him. The guy reached out his hand to Zhang Xuan, and the guy realized that he had the third rank. He angrily grabbed Huang by the collar and pulled him to him, saying that he was bullying him. He'd seen psychos, but never yet had they wished for death, and he was sure to nail him. Let him believe it. Juan calmly told him not to get so annoyed. If he's not mistaken, he's from Pingyi. The guy was surprised, thinking about Pingyi being a small settlement next to Tianshuan City. How did he realize that? He asked the teacher how he guessed it. The one replied that it didn't matter at all how he knew it. What was much more important was that 6 months ago, he had been bitten by a cold bamboo snake in the Tianshuan forest. He managed to survive, but his kidneys were damaged due to the bite. He became impotent. The salesman shocked at Huang's distance, thinking about the fact that 6 months ago in the Tianshuan forest, he had indeed been bitten by a cold bamboo snake. But how did he know that if he only said it to that girl in the brothel? And Zhang Huang, he asked, wasn't he right? If he lied, he would just turn around and leave, but he would never be able to feel like a man again. And don't let him say later that he didn't warn. The guy immediately held out his hand to him, telling him to wait. He asked hopefully if the man really knew how to help him. If he knows the cure, please let him help him. He will be able to take whatever he has on his counters for free. Zhang Huang replied that eye from the cold bamboo snake freezes the organs when it enters the body. This is a fact. Medicine is useless here. For this reason, people often amputate limbs. Even the most skillful alchemists can do nothing. But here's the strange thing. Despite the chilling properties of this snake's body, its bile has a warming effect. He just needs to absorb it. This will completely cleanse his body of the foreign cold, and he will become a man again. The vendor looked at him in surprise, asking, "What is the need to eat the bile of the cold bamboo snake? Is it that simple?" Juan said he thought he saw these snakes in the same stall. If he doesn't believe him, he can buy it and try it right now. The guy turned around and said no. He has one snake. Let him wait here. He opened a drawer out of which emerged a small green snake with yellow eyes. He cut it from the torso in the right place, took out the red bile and put it in his mouth. He felt something and was shocked. He fell to his knees in front of the teacher and thanked him for his help. He could feel like a man again. All this ice sungrass is his. Zhang Huang smiled and said that he told him that he would give it to him for free. The guy stood up and awkwardly scratched the back of his head, saying that he was sorry for not recognizing him as a talented person at first. He asked for forgiveness. Juan replied that he shouldn't. 2 guys passing by were discussing about Master Mo Yang being here. One of them said that they had a chance to get his invaluable advice. If he was lucky, he would definitely make his way to him, no matter what the price was. It was a pity they missed the chance last time. Juan asked the salesman what was going on there. He turned around and said that Master Mo Yang had arrived. He's just a great appraiser. Huang thought about the fact that for as long as he could remember, it's a specific profession like gourmet, and they are valued about the same. But to follow the advice of an appraiser or not, it's kind of like gambling. You never quite know if you're going to be lucky or not. Treasure betting. It's like betting with gems in his world. Someone will get a fake and someone else will get a valuable artifact. With the Library of Heaven's Way, he doesn't need luck at all. He just needs to touch the item and he'll realize everything. This is definitely a way to get rich. He waved his hand at the vendor, saying that he would leave the herb with him for now. He would come and get it later. The man told him that was fine. Let him not worry about it. A huge crowd gathered in front of the man. Everyone was shouting, waving, and asking him to help. One woman said that if he would help her, she would do whatever he said. Others asked for direction. One elderly old man asked the foreman to just tell him if it was worth his money, and then he would pay him. The master turned out to be an elderly man with a thin, long mustache. He said with a smile on his face that Mo would be leaving here tonight, but he wanted to thank them for the hospitality they had shown him. He will give advice to the 5 people tonight. They don't need to fight if he is meant to help them, then so be it. Behind him there was a table not far away, on which various items were spread out. Standing by the table was Zhang Huang, who was looking at them in thought. In front of him was a blue vase with a thin, long neck and 2 handles. From the library he read that it was a decorative vase made by an artisan in Qingyun. Defects, cracks cover the piece, could collapse at any moment. Huang thought about the fact that this thing looks impressive, but honestly it's just junk. Just as he thought, with a single touch, he can find out detailed information about everything. The prices here are terribly overpriced. The people were frustrated, asking the master if he was really leaving tonight. Why doesn't he stay a few more days? Why is he leaving? Frowning his eyebrows, the old man replied that he had more business to attend to. He will add 5 more. As they know, searching for treasures among the trash is a difficult activity that requires concentration. 10 was his limit. Several young boys shouted from the crowd that they were willing to pay him to help them. The appraiser sternly replied that this was nonsense. He's been practicing his craft for a very long time, and if he wanted to capitalize on it, he'd do it without them. Let him think it would be easier for him to buy back the treasure himself and sell it for a higher price. The boys lowered their heads guiltily, saying he was right. The appraiser continued that the reason he helps them is because of their gratitude and light emotions. Money is water to him. All that has value is emotion, friendship. If someone talks about money again, he will not help them. A man in the crowd said the master was right. They were stupid. A woman added admiringly that the master's aspirations were so lofty. Someone said that he never thought about it, but the master changed his mind. Mo Yang said that before he helps them, he needs to say. The appraiser could only increase the chance that they wouldn't get a fake, but they couldn't get a full guarantee of success. But as long as they were with him, he would help them. No sooner had he asked which one of them would go first than everyone started raising their hands and shouting what they wanted. The appraiser pointed at someone in the crowd and said with a smile that they would start with the old man. Mo Yang walked over to the table with the items and said that he would use his technique to figure out which one was worth their attention. He pointed his hand at the table, saying that they could buy this decorative vase from the end of the Koban period, which was worth a lot of money. An old man with a chest in his hand stepped forward and asked if it was a Koban period vase. The appraiser replied that it was. The crowd began to say that it looked really impressive. This old man was really lucky. Zhang Xuan, who was watching from the sidelines, thought, wasn't it the one he had just inspected? This is an ordinary vase from Qing Yun's workshop. The old man held out his trunk to the appraiser, saying that it was as a token of his appreciation and asked him to accept it. Mo Yang thanked him in return. And the teacher thought that he couldn't be wrong, right? But then he was in the library and he asked in surprise, what was the one using a martial technique? A book flew to him. He opened it and read that Yang Mo was originally an apprentice appraiser, moonlighting as an informer in the Liuju kingdom, eventually making his way into artifact appraisers. Martial techniques. A seductive entry-level voice clouds people's minds with words, convincing them of the greatness of the master of the technique. Walking out of the library, Zhang Huang looked at the appraiser in surprise and thought that this guy really looked refined and highly moral. Even him, he had been cheated by him. If there are scammers, then there are also their victims. This seemed to be the majority of the crowd. Turning around and walking away, Huang calmly exhaled, thinking that it was good that he didn't need any help. At this moment, Mo Yang said that the last lucky person would be the young man, and pointed his hand at Huang. The guy turned around, looked at him, and asked if it was him. The historian answered him that yes,